Excuse me, record center shoppers. I'd like a moment of your attention, please, to introduce you to an up-and-coming young performer that we're all very keen on here at the Record Center. We believe he's really going to be going places. He's a bit shy and bashful, so if you'd please make him feel at home, Mr. Stephen Fearing.
I'm supposed to go straight into this, but I'm just going to say thank you so much for coming. This is really, really a special thing. I haven't done this for over a decade, so thanks. I'm the man who tells the world about the things we did. The things we did, the things we did, all the faces we wore and the ones we keep hid. I'm the man who tells the world about the things we did. I got this job when I was 17. The old man dragged me in. He showed me how a life and times is just a black and white picture and 5 short lines. And I took the reins at 21. This paper was the old man's life. He went to get lunch, but it never came back. I printed his picture and I called his wife. I'm the man who tells the world about the things we did, the things we did, the things we did, all the faces we wore and the ones we keep hid. I'm the man who tells the world about the things we did. When the new boss arrived, he was 35 and as sharp as the edge of his degree. I should have smelled a rat when the banker came around. I should have seen the money walking out of this town. They said this place is like a museum. It's an ode to the ancient and the strange. And they laughed at my pencils and my legal pad. One click of the keyboard and the whole world changed. Was a pirouette, Earhart was a plane, and Martin Luther King became his dream. Maybe we become the love that our children carry with them. Give them the key to your heart if it's the only thing you give them. Now it's getting late and the reaper won't wait. It's time for me to set my story down. I put the ugly with the pretty and the bad beside the good. Print it like I wrote it, 'cause you know that I would. I'm the man who tells the world about the things we did, the things we did, the things we did, all the faces we wore and the ones we keep hid. I'm the man who tells the world about the things we did, all the faces we wore and the ones we keep hid. The man who tells the world about the things we did. Perfect song. I would never have thought of it.
Thank you, Stephen Fearing. Welcome to our Tiny Stage series here at the Record Center.
Thank you for having me.
We're so glad you're here, and thank you for bringing July weather in September. That's not.
Don't blame me. I'm from Victoria.
Yeah, we understand you could bring the rain also.
Yes.
on command.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. So Listen, there was a time when you were that young, up-and-coming performer that I jokingly introduced at the beginning.
Yes.
How would you describe that ride you've been on from the Blue Line to The Secret of Climbing, if you had to sort of sum it up succinctly?
It's just one step after another. You know, there's never been any really significant kind of, wow, here we go. You know, the treadmill just sped up a whole lot. It's always just been pretty steady forward motion, occasionally the odd backward, but mostly forward, and a succession of really great people who I've met, who have, you know, helped me in one way or another, audiences alike. I mean, there is a lot of sort of there's a lot of mythology around the music business that it is full of sharks, and that's true, but I haven't met that many of them. I've been pretty lucky. Mostly I've met people that were really passionate about music in one form or another, be it making art, pressing vinyl, nerdy people that are nuts about turntables or CDs or amplifiers or guitars, but all really coming from the same place, which is loving music. So I've been lucky that way.
So if you could send a message back in time to that young Stephen Fearing of the Blue Line, you get a short message back to him, what would you warn him of or
I would
alert
just
him to?
tell one word, just relax, relax. It's okay, it's okay. Because it's really easy to get, it was really easy. I don't know, I mean, I don't know about the YouTube generation. That is officially not part of my deal, although I participate in it. But it's not really, for me, it's just something that I can use, but it's not my platform. Like when I started, it was record stores and radio and those things that are kind of broken beyond belief. There was a real, you know, the next record's going to be it, and the next thing is going to be it, and the next video, and you got to do this, and what I kind of, nobody ever told me along the way that the most important thing, and this is something I've been harping on for years now, is the work itself is actually it. There's no final thing. There's no you get there and then that's it. You've made it. Like that phrase doesn't make any sense to me at all. There's no making it. It's just continuing to do the work, and that is actually the reward. And so that's what you're doing. So just relax.
And that largely can apply to anybody in any occupation or hobby or whatever. You know,
I think so.
It's really
it's a pretty zen thing.
good
way of
zen
looking
secret
at it.
to life.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's really true, especially for the artist, because there's no control, there's no guarantee of anything at all, not even that people will like it. So why worry about it? Just do what you do because you love it. That's the end of it.
Okay, well, while we're in a zen vibe, I'm going to cut right to the chase. Get
Okay.
right to the punchline. Stephen Fearing, what is the secret of climbing?
Well, the secret of climbing
now,
is...
now, we're all friends here, so we're not
Yeah.
going to tell the secret, okay?
Okay,
So
well,
it's safe with us.
This is a direct quote from Nelson Mandela. I've paraphrased it, but the secret of climbing is knowing that there's always something else going to come up that you have to climb ahead, so pace yourself. You know, there's no rushing up to the top of the summit and then you get there. It's just one after the other, just like I was saying. So pace yourself and enjoy each step and then smell the roses.
I mean, climbing can have several implications to it as well. It's a multi-layered kind of thing. Climbing can be overcoming obstacles and challenges. It can be, as we were talking about before, steps towards a destination or making it, which can be unrealistic or a realistic thing. Did it have these sort of several meanings for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so many ways that you can tie it in, and the secret of making records is seeing if you can find a way to tie the title in to the artwork, to the content of the album and all that. And there's so many connections with that phrase to this project, but it really came from this song that I wrote with Renee Smith, who's from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, and we were commissioned to write a song to celebrate the life of Nelson Mandela, because at the time he was very ill, and all of the news agencies around the world were doing that thing that they quietly go about compiling the show so that when the person dies they can have it up in a hurry, and they asked us to create this song. And then he hung on for like years because he's as tough as a boiled owl. And so when it finally was released, it kind of didn't have much of a the excitement had gone out of it, but I always felt that the song itself was really important. And the direct quote is the secret of climbing these great hills is that there's always one more hill to climb. And that was what he realized in his fight against apartheid. It was never going to end, right? I mean, yes, they got rid of apartheid in South Africa, but he would be the first one, if he was still alive, to point to all the other struggles. And he got to a point, I believe, from reading his from reading a lot of his speeches, that he got to a point where it became less about him as a black man and more of him as a human being, just realizing that there's always going to be struggles that we have to deal with, and somebody has to be the champion and step up.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you if there was a song you felt was almost the title track of the album, but I guess you've answered that.
Yeah,
so why don't we do that one?
Sure. I have walked a long way to freedom, tried not to stumble and fall down in the road. I discovered that the secret of climbing these great hills is there's always one more hill to go. I have taken the time to stop and rest a while, looking back on the valley below. I dare not linger, for my long walk isn't over. So many miles still to go. A saint is just a sinner who keeps on trying. So I kept my spirit pointed toward the sun. And freedom isn't freedom if it's only for yourself. The chains on me are the chains on everyone. So I let my light shine through the shadows of the night, from a tiny room behind a prison wall. Greatest glory in living doesn't lie in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. I kept my spirit pointed toward the sun. I have walked a long way to freedom, and it seemed impossible until it was done. It seemed impossible, impossible. Thank you. Thank you. A lot of that is Nelson Mandela. Like that, we went in when we wrote the song and looked at his speeches, and he created his speeches in a very, very, like, for a songwriter who's looking for crib notes, was like so many rhyming couplets. There was a meter and a flow, and he lifted liberally from Martin Luther King and from Gandhi, so we lifted liberally from him.
Beautiful. So Steve, the release sheet for the new album describes the sessions, and I love this phrase, recorded off the floor and unobscured by computers or studio wizardry.
Yeah.
So
this is the place to celebrate this.
So there's quite a tale to tell in terms of how the project came about and how it was recorded.
Yeah.
We could spend the whole hour just talking about that, but
easily.
Let me turn the floor over to you to give us the Cole's Notes version of that.
First of all, I love studio wizardry. Don't get me wrong. There's a series of things that have sort of evolved in the studio to deal with problems, and over time they've sometimes get abused. Witness share using auto tuning and turning it into an actual sound that we now have to listen to all the time, which is not just quietly tweaking a vocal because the vocalist went a bit flat, but actually using it as a flavor, a layer. And, you know, Marshall McLuhan was so right. The medium is the message, and every time somebody develops something in the studio, it becomes an effect. It becomes a layer that you can smear on, and sometimes the smearing gets a little liberal. And so Roy Gandy, who founded Riga Research, rather, back in the 60s, 70s, Riga turntables have been kind of the sort of the benchmark in turntables for people who are into turntables. Riga's like the primos, and they're cheap too. I mean, they're not cheap, but his whole deal was to try and create a turntable that was affordable but superb. And so I have the very sort of basic RP1, and it's got a switch on the bottom that makes the turntable go around, and that's it. Everything else you do by hand. It gets to the end and it just goes for hours, unless you lift it off and turn it off. So no frills. And then you can get up to ones that look like space-age sculptures. But he's been fascinated by the fact that on the one end, literally on the end of the chain is Riga, where they try to refine what's possible from a turntable by microns, which is how they measure hairs in microns. And yet at the front end, he knew very little about how records are made. So making records is kind of his hobby. So he asked me, he was at a songwriting workshop in Colchester that I was doing, and he asked me if I would be willing to come in and do some recording. And I said, of course, I'd love to, because I knew who he was, and the idea that I could somehow get involved with this amazing company really appealed to me. So the deal was, we make this record with as little technology as possible. And so it was literally 2 microphones. Nothing was plugged in. I got more technology here than they had in their entire studio setup. 2 microphones. If he could have got rid of the wires, he would have. We went straight to an old 8-track Studer 1-inch tape reel-to-reel that had been refurbished, and we used 2 tracks, one for the voice and one for the guitar, and then we mixed it. And the word mixing usually implies a big console, kind of like Rob's using over there, to mix the sound, where you take all the different signals and you send them to the 2 left and right channels. Because we only had 2 signals, mixing it was kind of weird, because we were going from 2 channels to 2 channels, voice and guitar to left and right. It was a bit of an odd thing, but the mixing board was a preamps that Roy built himself. And so we basically took voice and guitar and sent them to a left and right, and did that down to 1/4-inch tape. And from that, we went directly to the master, the mother disc that they stamp all the discs from. And in the process of doing that, normally you go into a mastering studio and you run it through their console, and they EQ and do all sorts of stuff. And Roy said, no, there's going to be no mixing console. And he brought a guy named Ray Staff in. Ray's retired. Ray's cut albums with the mastering engineer. The cutting engineer is it's a bit of a dark art, it's a bit of a dying art. A lot of people are kind of reviving it now because vinyl is popular again. But back in the day, the mastering engineer was kind of the last word in in how your record would sound, because they translated it from tape to physical grooves, to the vibration generating grooves of a vinyl disc. And Ray's been at it since Cab Calloway's days. So he cut records for Cab Calloway, Genesis, The Clash, like he's the dude. So Ray pulled him out of retirement. They went into Air Studios, which is George Martin's famed studio in London, and they cut my record without a mixing console. They went directly, like they literally made an extension cord that went directly from the quarter-inch reel-to-reel that we had mixed to and straight to the cutting lathe, and they cut it. And he wanted Ray to do it because he knew that Ray would get it. And so really there's, apart from the filter and of vinyl itself and the filter of the microphone, and if you want to be specific, the filter of what wiring you choose, because it all makes a difference, subtle or not. But it's about as little technology between me and that as you can get, which is scary as an artist who's grown up with Pro Tools and cut and paste and don't worry, we'll patch it together, you'll sound great. Like it's very naked, but I was up for it, and it proved to be a very just the whole process of it has been superb.
So how did you decide which songs from your substantial catalog were best suited to that process, or would benefit most from
Well, going back to the idea that a lot of the technology that's in studios was developed to deal with problems. So one of the problems that you have is that if you go from very quiet to very loud, you tend to create a very hot signal. And when you're going to digital, it'll cause unpleasant distortion. And with analog tape, it's a little more pleasant, but it's distortion nonetheless. It overdrives things, so they came up with compressors and limiters, and these are electronic ways to hold the signal down. So even though you're getting louder, it doesn't actually cause things to overdrive. But we didn't have any limiters or compressors. So I had to limit and compress myself, and Roy literally sat in the control room, which was his front room, and when he had sort of learned the song as I performed it 2 or 3 times, he would ride the faders manually, which is a very, very basic way of compressing. But we realized that the best thing I could do was kind of think in the model of, here are my sonic parameters. This is the quietest, this is the loudest. What can I do in that range that's not going to seem incongruous? So I started playing ballads. And I had just done a radio show in Holland for national radio, and this, I wish I could remember his name, Leo. He asked me to play a song that I hadn't played in a long, long time because he loved it, and I played it. And so when I got to Roy's, that was the first song I played, and then as I was playing it, I was thinking, what could I do next? And I had no agenda. It was really kind of like, I mean, even when I do a show, I write up a set list, right? Because I like to have that, if I start freaking out, I can look down and there's my little, the next song you're playing is this. But I went into this recording session with no set list. And I knew that we weren't, I mean, vinyl limits you in terms of how much information you can put on side A and side B. So it was going to be 8, 10, 11, 12 tracks. And indeed, we ended up recording 11, but we only put, Roy wanted maximum width of grooves, so we ended up with 4 tracks on each side. And if you get it, if you buy the record today for the low price of $25, you get, there's a digital download. And just to not, I'll stop. I know we can go on about this, but so what's the incongruity of including a digital download with a record that is so not digital and so not tech? And it was a bit of a head scratcher, but we ultimately, David Travers Smith, who made the Every Soul's a Sailor record with me, his old friend, great engineer, he created the digital files from the test pressing that we got from Germany of this record. So he dropped the needle, recorded it all into the digital realm, removed some of the hisses and pops that you get naturally on a radio when you bring it up, because it has to be louder for digital. And that's what the digital download is. So even the download is taken from the vinyl.
Nice. All right, so you were live off the floor there.
Yep.
We're live off the floor here. So dealer's choice, why don't you pick one from the album?
I'm going to play that same song that
Perfect.
The first song that got me into this record.
And the pressure will be on Rob, because now he's going to have to work the faders the same way here for our recordings.
So this is I don't remember remember when I wrote this tune, it had sort of shuffled off the set list. I wasn't playing it anymore. And Leo in Amsterdam was responsible for that, and in some ways for the content of this record.
All the anger fades away when my baby calls my name. Darkness from the breaking day when my baby calls my name. Fortunes rise and fortunes fall. Every gambler loves the game. I turn my back on them all when my baby calls my name. When the flood is rising and the bills come thick as rain, step inside out of the cold when my baby calls my name. And all the pretty horses take their turn around the pen, and the old brass shines, and all the fallen riders hope to climb back on again, 'cause they might hang on this time. And in the dance halls and the bars, or in the pearly morning light, some make love and some make war, kiss their little dreams goodnight. Passions rise and passions fall, and nobody's to blame. But I don't miss those days at all when my baby calls my name. When my baby calls my name.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
So you mentioned one of the challenges was that you had to modulate yourself within this range. Surely another of the challenges was the vulnerability. I mean, you're right there, basically naked almost.
Yeah.
Did that? I mean, you've never had any problem expressing, being an expressive kind of emotional guy, but this must have taken it to a new level to some degree.
Well, I'm as neurotic as the next person, that's for sure. And I think performing artists have a particular breed of neurotic. I mean, if any of you are familiar, I'm really close to somebody who makes their living doing this. The on-stage, off-stage dichotomy is sometimes pretty extreme. I could name names, but it's just that thing, right? You can get to a point of understanding that you aren't yourself on stage. You're a hyper version of yourself. You're some cases, of Tom Waits, Leon Redbone, it's actually a complete persona. And where the persona begins and ends is sometimes hard to read. But for me, I had a real epiphany years ago, which is when I met Colin Linden, and we made an album called, Jesus, what was it called? I can't remember what it was called because my brain's gone and I'm on stage. But Colin's whole thing was stop worrying about whether you're in tune, whether you're got a little fret buzz, or you didn't quite fret. Like, stop thinking about that stuff and just get in the moment, which is a hard thing to do in the artificial surrounds of a studio and sometimes even on stage, because there's weird things are going on. There's car horns honking and cell phones are going and your microphone doesn't work and your monitor's cut out and your guitar's and on and on and on and on. So you have to be the duck on the surface of the water where it's completely placid and underneath the legs are going like this, and you have to find a way to find the place where you can get into the music, and once you can figure that out, then it doesn't really matter where you are to a degree. I've been in places where it's just like, no, I can't do this. I just can't do it. It's too hard. There's too many distractions. But mostly, once you get comfortable with, I'm going to sing flat and I'm going to play weird notes and I might forget lyrics and flub things. Once you get over that and realize that most people in the audience either don't even notice or they don't care. And when it comes to recording, like, there's a massive selection downstairs of Beatles records. And if you ever want to have a lesson in this, put a Beatles record on, and then just, because most of them were recorded in, like, they weren't actually stereo. Listen to the left channel or the right channel on its own. And you will hear error after mistake, after flubbed lines, weird out of time stuff. And it's like you actually get to a point where if they fix it, you miss it. You actually start to love the errors and the mistakes, and they become part of the sonic landscape, and it's okay. So as artists, we're always trying to be perfect. And I grew up listening to Windham Hill records, right, where it was this glassy guitars and brand new strings every show. I used to change my strings every single show because I wanted that bright, glassy sound. And I don't like that sound anymore. It's kind of, I like dirty strings and kind of slightly dull, woody sounds more. And along with that goes flubs and errors. And, listen, any of the old country records, like, you're not listening for perfection because it's impossible. You're listening for vibe and soul and heart. And getting that on tape is a real challenge, but the first step towards it is forgetting about all the other stuff.
Another guy who has no trouble laying it on the line with every song he does is Mr. Tom Waits.
Yes.
And you selected a song
segue. Of his. Yeah. So I was at Roy's place, and I thought, well, I don't know what this record's going to be. If it's even going to be, like, we're just having fun here, so why don't I record a song I've always wanted to record? Because I've loved this song pretty much from the first time I heard it. And Waits is one of those people that seems to cross genres so easily because he sort of exists in a place that's entirely his own universe. Is he jazz? Is he a songwriter? What is he? What the hell is that? It's a bit like my friend Willie P. Bennett. What is Willie P. Bennett's music? Is he folk? Is he country? It's really hard to place it. And the cool stuff always exists on the edges. And this one just always appealed to me. I once had to give a lecture, a 2-hour lecture, and I decided I was going to talk for 2 hours on one song, and it was this song. And I did it too, and nobody fell asleep. I always tell songwriting students that if you can find a way to be authentic, it's much better than being original, because original is highly overrated. But authenticity it can be your own. And the thing I love about Waits is when he chooses names, when he puts song names of people in his songs, they're always interesting names.
Well, the smart money's on Harlow, and the moon is in the street, and the shadow boys are breaking all the laws. And you're east of East St. Louis, and the wind is making speeches, and the rain sounds like a round of applause. Napoleon is weeping, carnival saloon. His invisible fiancée is in the mirror. The band's going home, it's raining hammers, raining nails. And it's true, there's nothing left for him down here. And it's time, 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 time. And it's time, time, time that you love. Time, time, time. Well, they all pretend they're orphans, and their memories like a train. You can see it getting smaller as it pulls away. And the things you can't remember tell the things you can't forget. That history puts a saint in every dream. Ah, she said she'd stick around until the bandages came off. But those mama's boys just don't know when to quit. Matilda asks the sailor, are those dreams or are those prayers? So close your eyes, son, and this won't hurt a bit. And it's time, 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 time. And it's time, time, time that you love. Things are pretty lousy for a Callender girl. The boys just dive right off the cars and splash into the street. When she's on a roll, she pulls a razor from a boot, and 1,000 pigeons fall around her feet. So put a candle in the window and a kiss upon his lips, till the dish outside the window fills with rain. Just like a stranger with the weeds in your heart, pay the fiddler off till I come back again. It's time, 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 time. Time, time, time that you love. Time, time, time. Time, time, time that you love. And it's time, time, time.
The greatest song.
Thank you.
I get choked up. I get choked up on that song. The line, so close your eyes, son, this won't hurt a bit, kills me every time I sing it. Like, I have to be careful not to, like, burst into tears. I don't know what it is about that song.
Well, you had me almost going there.
Deadly. Deadly writing.
This is where you get to see the wizard behind the curtain a little bit. Because we're recording this for the podcast, Rob back here is just changing the tape. So we're just going to pause for 30 seconds.
We're at the 40-minute mark then, eh? Okay. Yeah, there's narrative writing, which is like the story that begins here, and there's the middle, and then there's the end. And then there's writing, which is just, it's Gord Downey was really great at this style of writing, which is just fragments that are poignant as hell, and they make you feel something, but you can't quite stitch them all together and go, well, this is what it's about. You know, and that's when the hornet stung me, and I had a feverish dream of revenge and doubt, and like, it's kind of like he leaves you, these writers that write like that leave you room to fill it in yourself. And that's what I just love about that song. It's so rich in imagery, and it comes at you so slowly, and yet it's kind of like, what? He just puts you immediately in this other universe. It's trip, that song.
Yeah. Great selection.
Thank you.
So listen, there's something, I'm going to leave you here in just a couple of minutes to entertain the folks without these verbal interruptions to end off our hour, but there's something I've always wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Are there particular characteristics or qualities that make something a Stephen Fearing solo song versus a Blackie and the Rodeo King song written by Stephen Fearing?
I don't think so, because I know that if you ask Tom or Colin that question, they would have a definitive yes answer, but they also are way more prolific than me. So what becomes a Blackie and the Rodeo King song is whatever I happen to have in my kitty at the time. Really, wondering. It's...
So it's not really something inherent in the song itself. It's more a matter of timing, what you happen to be working on at the time.
There's only been, I'm trying to think if there was ever an instance when I brought a song to the band and they went, no, I don't think we can really, like nobody got their brains around it.
Right.
We sort of, it was early on, I mean, because we formed the band around Willie's music, and like I was saying, Willie's music is so hard to define. Willie P. Bennett, Blackie and the Rodeo Kings was formed around Willie P. Bennett's songwriting, and we celebrated him on the first record, the songs of Willie P. Bennett, Higher Hurtin'. So that was our template. And his music is so hard to define. It really spans quite a wide variety of genres. And when Colin and I formed the band, Colin said, we need another vocalist because you and I can't cover this enough. So he brought Tom in, and immediately we had this kind of nebulous template in that the template was it was almost about what it isn't rather than what it is. This is not a rock band. This is not a country band. This is not a folk band, and it's not a blues band. And yet we're going to touch on all those things as we go along. And so any song you bring pretty much is fair game. But those guys are craftier than me. And so it's not that they say, this is a really good song, I'm keeping this for my solo record, because we all know that in some ways Blackie and the Rodeo Kings has more reach than any of us will ever have as individuals. Tom is playing the NAC coming up, so he's kind of cracked that wall on his own, whereas Colin and I have not played the NAC. None of us, Tom has played Massey Hall as well, so maybe Tom's going to start sticking songs away and going, I'm going to keep that one for myself.
But has Tom played the Record Center?
No, I don't believe he has.
I mean, there's cachet and then there's cachet.
Yeah, that's true. Although he would be on it like a dirty shirt. And I swear to God, he'd be here like half an hour before you open, and he'd be going, okay, so can we figure out some kind of a deal here? Because I wanted all of this stuff.
Well, so you wanted to say a word about the importance of places like this, so maybe this is a good place to do it.
Yeah, that's a great time to do it. There's a film called Good Vibrations, which I urge you all to see. I think it's on iTunes. And it's a fictitious rendition of a very, very true story. Northern Ireland, Belfast, the height of the Troubles in the 70s was when it really started to flare up in a way that it hadn't before up there. And I grew up in Dublin, so I'm talking from knowledge, albeit I was very young. And this guy, whose name I can't remember.
Terry Hooley.
Thank you so much. Terry Hooley, who's a real person. And John, you got to see this show because you will see Terry Hooley as he is created on screen and go, oh, I know you really well. And Terry Hooley decides that he can't take the division that's happened because there was this group of kind of groovy 60s dudes in the north of Ireland, just like they were everywhere else in the world at that time. They wore bell-bottom pants and they had long hair. And they got cleft down the middle by Catholic and Protestant because the Troubles up in the north, you weren't allowed to not take sides. You had to take sides. And if you didn't take sides, your community would come down on you. And, people got kneecapped and shot and blown up because they wanted to be friends with each other, and it wasn't allowed. And so he decided that he wanted to create a safe space where people could meet And so he opened a vinyl store in Belfast at the height of the Troubles, like right downtown. And he called it Good Vibrations. And it was a bust. Nobody came because they were terrified. So it was kind of just getting along. And then this young kid came in, and this is beautifully put in the film. This young kid came in and said, you know, in a strong Belfast accent, "Have you got an album by Stiff Little Fingers?" And he said, "Who?" He goes, "You call yourself a fucking record store?" And he walks out. And Terry Hooley runs down the street after him going, "Who's this band? Tell me about it." And he goes, "If you want to know, come see here." And he gives him a poster. And he goes, and it's a punk show. And this is true. Punk in Belfast in the 70s was the only way that Catholic and Protestant kids could come together and fight the man, right? Which was the Brits and the IRA and the Provos and all of those people. Punk was the safe place for them. And this is something that is the sort of story doesn't get told about that particular chunk of music in that particular place. It wasn't about fighting, you know, the dinosaurs of rock and all that stuff as much as it was about finding community. And so what he did was he became the proponent of punk. And he actually got, which I can't remember which band it was from the North, but he got him on the John Peel show. And that was huge.
The Undertones.
The Undertones. He got the Undertones on John Peel, and John Peel was the arbiter of underground taste. And it was a long-running BBC top. It was like what all the heads listened to, and he got the Undertones on that because he persisted. So he created community. And when I come in here, this is everything I would want a record store to be. All the junk and doodads and stuff, and it's all here. And when I started, I would go into record stores and do this, but it didn't have the same vibe because it was kind of, we didn't really know that it was going away, and so we kind of took it all for granted. And it was a good deal more about furthering your career and a lot less about celebrating this. And so here it is again. Yeah, don't take it for granted because it goes away really fast.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Steve. So as I said, I'm gonna pull away now and let you go to it for 2-3 songs, whatever you feel like. We've got about 12-13 minutes left.
Yeah. Well, I'll play this tune and then see where we go.
We talked about Blackie and the Rodeo Kings. I don't know if you might fit in a Blackie Stephen Fearing song in the mix.
Sure. You know what? I could do that, and then I'll see if I can get 2 more songs in.
Perfect. Stephen Fearing.
He said, "Baby, I'm done," and he pushed back his plate. The sky was as dark as the hour was late. I took the fight with the lean, the hard with the cold, but I'm hungry for love. I'm hungry for love. And I'll go down by the river where the silver moon shines. I'll read my reflection like the book of my mind. 'Cause I've been dreaming of rainbows and rumors of gold. I've been dreaming of love. Love, I've been dreaming of love. And I'll sing for you now as I'm going away. You can hold to what's broken the rest of your days, or let go of the vow to have and to hold. I went to my neighbor to show him my heart.
I knew it was over before I could start. 'Cause there's friends of the heart and there's friends of the road in the passing of love. Love in the passing of love. Love in the passing of love. I don't know what you think, I don't hear what you say. All the tales that I spun at the end of the day. Walk a mile in my shoes, a life in my soul. And the woods are alive with the murmur of spring. The snow melts away and the creeks start to sing. When the shepherd's asleep, the black sheep leaves the fold, gone looking for love. Love, looking for love. Love, looking for love. Love, looking for love.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, I'll play one more. And this is just kind of because I'm in Ottawa. And, well, you're sort of the epicenter of things right now, aren't you? Notwithstanding, but let's... yeah, this song was written, this is off of the Every Soul's a Sailor record. This was written kind of as a lark for me. In 2016, I went away for a week to write songs for the album. And what's his name? You know, him from the South. He who shall remain nameless because he's getting way more press than he ever fucking deserved. And he was trying to become the nominee for the Republican Party, and it seemed laughable at best. I mean, it just seemed so out of the realm of possibility that he could even become the nominee for the Republican Party. Shows you what I know. So I wrote the song kind of because I was at this friend's cabin and I was surrounded by Merle Haggard and Waylon Jennings records, and I wanted to kind of goof around with that, and I had my Telecaster and I wrote this song and thinking, it'll be something I probably won't record, a bit of a throwaway. And then he got elected, and I thought, wow, I have got a song now that I'm probably going to be playing every night for the next 3 years, 4 years. Maybe. Anyway, this is called Blowhard Nation. I don't want to live in a blowhard nation with the king in a tinselly crown. When the whole thing wobbles in and wheels come off, you know what's gonna go down. There's the same sad story about the power and the glory, the big shot leaving uptown. It's the old rat race, so get ready for the chase. The fat cats are gaining ground. I got up this morning and I grabbed me a paper to read up on the low, low down. The The front page feature was a weird-looking creature with a rug and a jowly frown. Some of my sinister neighbors are rattling the sabers, and the circus is a-coming to town. It's like a bad tattoo, and there's nothing you can do. I could sure use a stiff drink now. They all line up for Christ Almighty, but there ain't no spine in the words. And when they talk of resurrection, they're thinking the election is the saddest thing I ever heard. And the whole debate has a sickening weight, like a steer when the hammer comes down. Where do you see the cross? Well, you better get lost. They're gonna burn something down. I don't want to live in a blowhard nation, the king in a tinselly crown. When the whole thing wobbles and the wheels come off, you know what's gonna go down. It's the same sad story about the power and the glory, the big side living uptown. It's the old rat race, so get ready for the chase. The fat cats are gaining ground. You see the breadlines growing and the headlines crowing is as bad as it's ever been. They're all talking while the whole town's walking down the boulevard of broken dreams. And easy money is as sweet as honey to a hick hanging off of a plow. But make no mistake, when they're showing you the cake, they never let you eat it now. I don't want to live in a blowhard nation, the king in a tinselly crown. When the whole thing wobbles and the wheels come off, you know what's gonna go down. It's the same sad story about the power and the glory, big fish living uptown. It's the old rat race, so get ready for the chase. The fat cats are gaining ground. Make no mistake, when they're showing you the cake, they never let you eat it now. Thank you so much. All right, let the talking begin.
Stephen Fearing, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming down and taking part in our tiny stage series. Stephen has albums, The Secret of Climbing, for sale behind the counter. There are posters, there are T-shirts, and you know you want one. All right. Thank you, Stephen. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Pleasure was mine.